Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be going over the flooding threat for parts of the southeast. They could potentially be seeing 3 to 6 or more inches of snowfall just over the next 2 days. So really going to be a big threat of flooding, especially within the Carolinas, Georgia, and northern Florida. So we're going to be reviewing that and much more in today's video. If you have any questions or you just want a forecast for your area, just leave a comment down below. Now, a quick update on the 9th. Starting on the 9th, we'll have a bunch of videos coming out for the longer range, especially for the fall and winter time. So from the 9th through the 15th, we're going to have some longer range videos. Here's the schedule. On the 9th, we're going to have your August forecast. On the 10th, we'll have your fall forecast. The day after, on the 11th, we'll have the fall foliage forecast. On the 12th, we'll have the winter forecast. The total snowfall forecast will be on the 13th. The first snowfall forecast will be on the 14th. And the first frost forecast will be on the 15th. If you have any questions on any of those topics, leave them down below on those videos, and I'll be responding to each one of those comments. So let's get right into it here, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. We have some heat advisories in parts of the Northwest, for parts of Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and also a little bit of California. We have some air quality alerts in effect for the Rockies and the Northwest as well as for parts of the Northern Plains and the Midwest. We have some flood watches for parts of New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, as well as some excessive heat warnings and heat advisories in parts of the Southwest. For the coastal Carolinas, as well as some parts of Georgia and northern Florida, we have some flood advisories also, or flood watches also, in place for the flooding potential. Yesterday, we had a high temperature of 120 degrees in Death Valley, California, with a low temperature 9 miles south of Albany, Wyoming, where they got down to 35 degrees. The highest rainfall report was in Decatur, Texas, where they got 4.16 inches of rain, and there were no snowfall reports as of yesterday. Here's a look at the expected precipitation over a 6-hour time frame. So I was originally just going to show you the simulated radar from the European model, although I think this is going to show you a better view. So basically what this map is indicating is over a 6-hour increments. So for example, this view would be from right around 10 a.m. Eastern time today to about 4 p.m. Eastern, or to about 4 p.m. Eastern time today as well. So this is showing how much rainfall you got within that 6-hour time frame, and it can show you where the storm is generally at, and it also shows you where the flash flooding potential is. So I think this is going to be a better view of how much rainfall you're actually getting, and then of course we're going to show you the total rainfall forecast at the end of today's video. So starting off here for this morning, you can see that we have some of those heavier amounts of rainfall. Again, this is over a 6-hour time frame, so if you're getting a total of half an inch, you want to divide that by 6 and say that you're getting about 1/10 of an inch of rain per hour. So you want to divide whatever amount of rainfall you have by 6, and you'll get an average hourly rainfall rate. So you can see those higher amounts, especially for the eastern Carolinas. It's going to be centered over 2 pockets, one for the coastal Carolinas and another one that's going to be in southwestern Georgia and the panhandle of Florida. These 2 areas are where I think you could be dealing with a decent amount of rainfall, and that's going to be the 2 areas that I think have the best chance of seeing some flooding. Although if you live in the southeast in general, it will be quite rainy. Even if it's not flooding potential, you'll still have a decent amount of rain. If we move on to later tonight, you can see that we do have quite a bit of rainfall in these areas. So you can see that we have between about 2 p.m. today and 8 p.m. Eastern time today, we have about 1 to 2 inches, even higher localized amounts in parts of the Carolinas, especially for eastern North Carolina. You can see that over the southeast in general, even up the spine of the Appalachians, we still have about 3/10 of an inch to half an inch every 6 hours, which over the course of 24 to 36 hours will definitely add up, and many of these areas will be dealing with 2 or 3 inches at least of rainfall. Moving this along, you can see that by late tonight into early tomorrow morning, most of the rainfall threat is in parts of eastern North Carolina, and these are the areas that are getting closer to 1 to even 2.5 inches of rainfall within that 6-hour time frame. If we divide that by 6, we're looking at right around, I would say 3/10 to even 4/10 of an inch of rainfall per hour, which is a decent amount, and that would be, if we were to convert that to snowfall, which I think is a way better way of kind of measuring how intense it is. A lot of people don't really know, and I don't even know really how much 3/10 of an inch per hour of rainfall is. So if you were to put that into snowfall, if we were to use a 1 to 10 ratio, that would mean that you're getting about, if this were in the wintertime, 3 to 4 inches of snow per hour. That's a ton of snowfall. That's just coming down in the form of rainfall. So you're dealing with a lot of rain in these areas per hour. It's going to be quite heavy for a lot of the time. So you want to be paying attention to the roads. If you see any flooded roadways, remember, turn around, don't drown. It's way safer to just find another route instead of going through a flooded roadway. I know my area flooded just a couple of days ago, and there were a few cars in the streets just from people trying to go through the water and not being able to do it because the roads dip in and out due to the hills. So when you do have that, especially if you're in a hilly area, it can be hard to tell whether the road is going down or it's just staying flat, especially when it's flooded. So just best case scenario, just try and go around that area, find another detour to get to your location. Moving this around to Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, you can see that we have in parts of eastern North Carolina, especially for the Outer Banks. And they're dealing with 1 to 2 inches of rainfall per 6 hours. If we were to divide that by 6, you're looking at right around 2/10 to 3/10 of an inch of rainfall. Again, if we're using that snowfall conversion to give you a better idea of how much that actually is, that would be about 2 to 3 inches of snowfall per hour. And that's fairly heavy in the wintertime if that were to happen. So that kind of gives you a good idea of how much rainfall is actually coming down all at once. So we're definitely dealing with some heavy amounts of precipitation all at once, unfortunately. And I think that's why you could be dealing with flooding. If this were happening over a 7-day time frame and you got 7 inches of rainfall, that's not really a flooding threat, considering that you're only getting about an inch per day. So that's not really going to be too big of a deal. You will be able to, most roads will be able to clear out the water by that point. And then you get more rainfall after that. It's not going to cause too much flooding. But when you get 7 inches of rainfall, like some of these areas will be getting over the course of 24 to 36 hours, you're looking at a very heavy rainfall rate, which means that the roads really won't be able to clear. You're going to probably be dealing with a lot of flooding over these areas, especially over the Outer Banks of North Carolina, parts of the coastal areas of South Carolina, and also maybe even a little bit of Florida and Georgia as well. If we move this along, this would be by Wednesday early afternoon into the evening. And you can see that most of the rain has wrapped up, unless you live in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. The rest of the southeast is fairly dry for the most part, dealing with just very light rain for most of those spots. You can see that storm continues to head further to the north, and you can tell where the rain bands are. This is not really a low pressure system. There's not really any defined low pressure that's driving this area of rainfall. What's actually happening is that we have a high pressure, and we're going to talk about this in just a little bit in more detail, but we have a high pressure sitting out in the Atlantic, and we have a low pressure, which is bringing in some cooler air. Once that goes out, it'll become a bit of a warmer pattern, but for the time being, we have a bit of cooler air due to that low pressure, and what we're dealing with is just a stream of moisture just falling right above there and right in between there, and because of that, and that's where we're getting most of that rainfall. So we just have a stream of moisture right in between those two areas of high and low pressure, and that's where you're getting your rainfall. It's not really a storm system necessarily. It's just a big stream of rain which is going from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the Gulf of Maine. If we look at the total rainfall forecast, this is the European model, and then we're going to zoom in on some more localized areas so that you can get a better idea for exactly how much rainfall you're expecting based on your location. You can see that we're dealing with a general 1 to 3 inches or even 4 inches of rainfall in parts of North Carolina, South Carolina. You get into southern Georgia and the northern half of Florida, you're looking at more of 1 to 3 inches of rainfall, and then if we zoom in here a little bit more, we'll start off in the southeast just to give you a better idea. You can see that some parts of the Outer Banks, according to the National Weather Service forecast, are expecting over 5 inches, even closer to 8 inches of rainfall as you get into some of these outer lying islands. And then you can also see that we're dealing with 2 to 3 inches into northern Florida, southern Georgia, according to this forecast as well. Zooming in on a few areas, looking at Georgia and Florida first, you can see that you have to get fairly far south in Georgia to actually start to get some decent amounts of rainfall. So if you live further into central or northern Georgia, you're not really dealing with a whole lot of rain, maybe half an inch over the entire 3 day time frame. But over the next 3 days, so this is going from today all the way until I believe Thursday, you can see that we're dealing with heavy rainfall in these areas, northern Florida, southern Georgia, to the coastal Carolinas, dealing with 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. If we look at the excessive rainfall outlook, you can see that this is also indicating that we have some flooding risk, especially for today. They have a moderate risk, a 20 to 50% risk over this area in the coastal part of South Carolina and North Carolina. So we definitely have the risk of flash flooding over these areas. And you also see another area which goes into the Rockies. That's because of just a little bit of rainfall. They're not actually dealing with that much rainfall, but just because they haven't seen any rainfall really over the past few months, it will potentially cause some flooding just because of how dry the ground is in that area. So that's why we have that flooding threat within that location. Looking at why this is happening, it's actually really interesting when you look at the upper air map. You can see that we have this big trough into the eastern United States, so we have that trough right there, and then we have your high pressure, which is sitting out in the Atlantic. This is blocking the trough from moving, and this is just a time frame from from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, as of when this 500 millibar map would be valid. So you can see we have that trough in the east, we have a high pressure further to the north, and another low pressure which is going to be moving out further to the east. So that's your setup in the upper air. And look at where the rainfall is. The rainfall is going to be in a kind of a stream which goes right through here. It's right in between the high and low pressure. So that's what's creating all of that rainfall, that thin little area in between the low and high pressures. If we look at the precipitable water percentage, you can see that we're looking at above normal amounts of rainfall compared to normal, and you can see that it's right in between the high pressure, which you can see would be right here, and the low pressure and the trough, which would be right here. So here's the trough shape right there, and you can see right in between both of those areas is that area of rainfall and that area of high moisture, and it's just going from the Gulf of Mexico and streaming all the way up into parts of the Gulf of Maine and also Nova Scotia, and then eventually out into the northern Atlantic. So it's an interesting setup. We don't see this too often, where we just see a stream of moisture move in and move across the southeast and the east coast. But that is what's happening from the system. It's very interesting, and I'll continue to track it on this channel. Again, another reminder that this next upcoming week, starting on Sunday, we'll have your August forecast. On the 10th, we'll have your fall forecast, your fall foliage forecast coming out on the 11th, winter forecast on the 12th, the total snowfall forecast on the 13th. The day after, on the 14th, we have your first snowfall forecast, and then to wrap things up, your first frost forecast on the 15th. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments of today's video, and also if you want any answers regarding the longer range forecast, just leave a comment on those respective videos when they do come out. So again, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.